So the next part on this is the tube stripes. This is the bit that I think that people find a bit, it's more daunting. It's not. Again, it's just painting lines on. It's a similar technique to this. You're just doing this on raw plastic though. But you've got to take into account that you've got curvature that way and you've got curvature this way. Again, mark it out with a pencil. There's nothing wrong with marking it out with a pencil. The only reason I don't is because I've been doing it for a long time. I mean, I used to use stencils when I first did this. And they were a nightmare. They'd never stick down properly. Again, because of the curvature that way and the curvature that way. So that's why I changed it and I started doing them with tape. Again, you're measuring the tape, the same here and the same here. It's I do it at 15mm. So what I'll do is I'll put the top tape on first, and then I want to put this one on parallel. But you're probably not going to get it right first time. But what I do is I've got my little ruler here, and I know 15mm is there on my ruler. So what I do is I can see there. The tape is in the right place. And what I'll do is if it's not right, I'll peel it back and I'll put it back, peel it back, put it back. And then just push it down firmly afterwards. So again, this side here. And I always measure it at 3 points. Measure at the front, measure at the middle, measure at the back. If it's slightly out, you're not really going to notice, but you do notice when it's up there or down there and it starts to spray out like that. And always make sure at the end that you get it right. Like measure it there, but it can still be off there. Like that one is a little off. So I'm just going to pull it up. I'm just going to tuck it in there. There we are. It's ready for go. Right, so we're on there. Again, using the same brush. These, depending on which helmet it is, like the Move Along Trooper, the Sand Trooper, it's got 13 on either side. There are some which have 14 on one side and 15 on the other. There are some that have 12 on one side and 11 on the other. And one has none at all. So, yeah, consistency. For consistency, we tend to put 15 on each side because we know there was quite a few of those sorts of helmets with 15 on. So, again, you're pretty much using the same brush each time. You don't want your paint too thick for this. If you haven't done this before, I would recommend marking it out with a pencil for your spacing. And it's a curve, so you're doing a curve on a curve on a curve that way. So it does sort of mess with your head a bit. So paint the tube there. Leave a space equal to the amount of that one there. Same with that there. And again, I'm using my little finger to balance. Sometimes you do get a little bit of bleed on the edges, but take care of that after with the cotton bud and a little bit of white spirit just to neaten it up. So that's your tube stripes. So next bit from there is the Vicoder. So for this one, I tend to use a brush that's a bit more rounded on the end. Let's take this one here. So we start in the middle. Just going to try and get the shape right at the top, or as near as damn it. Doesn't matter if your paint's a bit thin on this, you can go over it again afterwards. in a lot of areas you're better off giving decking coats on these just to make it last long, because especially with trooping, these things, they get knocked about, and one of the first places for it to go is on you can see on some of the originals that these areas got rubbed off, and on the ears as well. People tend to knock the ears and then you get a little bit of white showing through the grey. Incidentally, if you're doing one of these and it's a PVC helmet, before applying any paint, it's always good to give a bit of a rub down on these areas, mainly because it does come off the PVC helmets. The paint does come off a bit easier than it would do on ABS. With the ABS, it tends to grip to the plastic really well. So yeah, just with a bit of wire wool or a tiny bit of sandpaper, just to take off little edges. I mean, you're not taking it off. All you're doing is just roughing that edge so that the paint has got something to grip to. And it's always worth doing that in the grey as well, on the traps on the back, because again, when you're applying tape, sometimes the tape, it just wants to pull it off. But that way, if you've rubbed it down beforehand, it's got a lot better contact to the plastic. Again, we're just freehanding most of this, as they were painted originally. And again, you're painting on a curve this way and a curve that way, a much tighter curve. But you're wanting it to fall into the gaps as well. So each one there is also rounded off at the top and rounded off at the bottom, but you can follow the shape more on the bottom. And there we have that. So we'll do the teeth, shall we? Certainly the way the teeth are cut and the way they're painted does give you certain styles of helmet. So for instance, with the Hero helmet, because it's got less teeth and the way that's cut, you have the little V's at either side, that make it, that distinguish it for being a Hero helmet. With Stormtroopers, they tend to have less painted, so you'll find with some Stormtroopers that they leave a gap here at the top and a little gap at the bottom. On the one that the Colin Michael Kitchens edition we did, there's quite a significant gap on this tooth at the bottom and on the front tooth there. But for again, for Heroes, because the teeth are much deeper, you tend to paint them round, almost round the tooth itself, which we do with this, but it's just not quite as defined. On the stunt helmet as well, certainly on the original, the last tooth isn't cut out. I don't know if Rob covered that in his tutorial. Another thing we get asked is, do you put mesh behind the teeth? And we don't, because there was no mesh behind the teeth on the originals. The plastic that the original's made from it's hard to get a lot of things to stick to it, and we have to use an etching primer on the green helmets in that same respect. It's also like the on the inside, the plastic, with it being a polypropylene plastic, they had the foam star which was inside, and that was also glued in, but it never stayed in. For example, the one in mine is just loose and just sort of hangs around. So yeah, the guys that were wearing these on set wore balaclavas, so they didn't have mesh behind the teeth. Okay, so there you go. So next, the ears. Again, you can draw around these with a pencil. You're just trying to get it into that corner, bearing in mind that it's quite close. Again, you're just trying to get it on that, on the upright part. You will find as well that if you apply the paint thick, it will tend to drag and drip. You want to try and avoid that as much as possible. And again, you're only covering detail up by applying the paint too thick. Now this A is completely different from that A. I think it was just that the tool itself, the detail had broke. So when we're doing an ESB, we tend to make it squarer in look. But for A&H, it's more rounded on one side. Slightly more rounded on this side. So again, give it some time. Let it, give it time to dry. 4 hours. I know it's a lot between layers, but it makes it easier. Makes it easier for you at the end of the day. You don't want to be splodging it or making a mess of it. So that's it.
There you go, simple as that. This is how we build stuff. So if you need a kit, you can get on the website. If, however, you've seen this and you think, this is not for me and I don't have the time, don't worry. We also have fully built commissions and fully built stuff. Or again, all on the website. Just click through, choose your character, it's all there for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.